So okay guys, today I'm going to be teaching you how to make your own Bonelabs level using nothing more than Unity and the Marrow SDK. Now with that said, to get started I recommend going on over to the Marrow SDK wiki, because if you're just following along with this video and they decide to change something within Unity itself or whatever get packages that you need, you will be out of luck. So I recommend following along with me as well as looking at the wiki itself, and if they change a certain step here or there, you'll be able to easily correct it on your end. Now there is one thing to note about Get. When we install this later, you will need to restart your computer or log on and off. The reason being is Get is a program that utilizes downloading GitHub repositories, and on Windows it doesn't make the directories it needs till the system is restarted or until you log on and off. So if you don't do that and we get down to the steps in this tutorial where you need Get, you'll realize it won't work. But with that said, I'll be installing Get later. For now, we're just going to jump ahead here and install the Unity Hub. To get to the Unity Hub install page, you can just use this link right here on the wiki itself. As you can see, it should pull up like this. Just hit download, and that should start downloading the Unity Hub. Now there is a thing to note about the Unity Hub. You will need an account to use this program, and you will also need to download about 8 GB in total. These 8 GB include the Marrow SDK, the Android SDK, and the Unity engine itself, the specific Unity engine that we'll be using for this video. As far as I can tell, there's no way of getting around signing into Unity besides making a fake account. I do have my own account, but for the sake of this video, I will explain how you can easily just make a temporary account. Just don't be surprised if it ever gets terminated, alright? You can use 10-minute mail to, well, set up a temporary account. You just type in 10-minute mail, it's usually the first URL on Google, and you can copy this link. I'll be using this link here in a little bit, so I'll probably copy that for now. And we're going to start off by installing the Unity Hub, so I'm going to click that, have it open up. It shouldn't take too long to open here, but I haven't used my Windows installation in quite a long time. Anyway, you just want to click on I agree, then click install. When it comes to these installers, especially Get, I recommend leaving as much of it as you can to the default, because the Marrow SDK and Unity itself really likes the default locations for a lot of its, well, setup. Anyway, now that the program is installed, I can hit finish. This should automatically run the Unity Hub, and it should start off by asking me for an account sign-in. However, I'm just going to be making a temporary account. It's as simple as hitting create new sign-in when the page finally opens up. If you get a user Windows security alert, be sure to allow access. We need this program to access the internet so that it could download the correct version of Unity later on. But yeah, since I don't really remember my account info off the top of my head, and I'm only going to be using this Unity Hub on this machine just one time, I'm going to create a temporary account, and then I'll get back with you when it's done. Alright, now that I'm signed in, it prompts you to install the Unity editor. As you can see, it's the correct version that we need. However, I'm not going to do it this way because I want to show you how you can do it manually. Because if you install the default one and it doesn't match up with what you need for the Marrow SDK, then the installation won't work. So I'm just going to hit skip installation on this for now, and we're going to do it manually. So to install manually, all you gotta do is hit install editor, go over to archive, and then from here you can hit download archive. This should open the page up automatically, and everything should well be linked together. So if I copy this Unity version ID from the requirements tab here, then go on over to 2021 Unity, hit Control F, then paste that ID in. We should be able to find it, and when we hit Unity Hub, it should automatically ask us to open within the Unity Hub itself. That's how you can manually install the specific version of Unity that you need in order to use the Marrow SDK. But yeah, with that said, I'm going to minimize that window so there's a little bit more space to look at this. And we're going to install the 3 things that are required. If you read along in the instructions, I should say, it will ask us to install the Android SDK, NDK, and Open ADK tools. Pretty much this whole section here. So just click this little checkbox. Then you can pretty much hit continue. If you have the Microsoft Visual Studio, however, you could probably uncheck that, but I'm going to let it install anyway because I'm pretty sure I do not have that on this particular system. But as you can see, the install is around 8 GB like I said, so you may have to just sit around and wait a while this downloads because it downloads pretty slowly. And if you get any prompts, just hit I have agreed and then hit continue. But yeah, that's basically it. We can hit the X here, and everything should download right here under the install location. So to check the current status, you can click the arrow here and see where exactly it is at. But yeah, with that said, I'll go about installing Get. Like I said, it's as simple as just clicking on the link in the Marrow SDK, and that will open up the Get page, and then you just hit download pretty much. Now that I got the executable downloaded, I'm going to go and open that. Now these 2 installs shouldn't interfere with each other, and to be fair, the Get installation is pretty quick, so it should be over before the actual Unity installation gets done. Anyway, it should look something like this. You want to click on Next. Next, I recommend just leaving everything on the defaults for now because a lot of the time if something's not in the correct location, Unity Hub and Get won't communicate with each other properly. And you need that because this program relies on Get to download the verified SDKs and such. So I'm just going to hit Next here, pretty much Next again, hit Next, 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 and then Next, 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 and then next. Then install. Alright, now that Get is installed, I'm just going to uncheck this box because I don't really need to look at the release notes right now, and I'm going to click Finish. So basically all that's left to do is install the SDK and Unity, but we first of all need to install Unity first, so we're pretty much stuck here waiting till this is done. I'll get back with you when this is done, then we'll go off and log off the computer or restart it. That way everything is initialized properly and we can continue on with the rest of the video. But with that said, I'm going to cut now to when this finishes, then we'll cut again later to get the rest of everything done. So alright, now that it's actually installed and pretty much ready to go, I do need to actually go on and restart my computer or log off and at least log back on because I don't have Get fully set up and situated, and to fully set that program up you need to do one of those 2 things. So I'm going to stop the recording here and I'll meet up with you when I get it back on. So alright, I'm back from logging off my computer and logging back in. The Get installation should now be fully configured and we should be good to go. So to actually install, or well, I should say launch this program now, all we have to do is go over to projects, and if you look in here you can see I got some that are using older versions of Unity. We don't really have to worry about that. If I'm not mistaken, all we gotta do is hit new project, and you should be asked which version of the editor that you wish to use. As you can see, I'm already on the correct version we need here at the top. So what do we do from here? All we gotta do is just scroll down and then make sure you select a template. Alright, it took me a minute, but the template we're looking for is under Core. You want to do Core URP. Just click on it and then hit download. This shouldn't take too long to download because unlike the other things that we had to download, this little template file should not be that large. So alright, now that that is done, I'm just gonna call this project my project Bonelab. and I'm just going to hit create project. That should now begin to copy over various things to that folder in my documents called My Projects Bonelab. It might take a little longer to do this on the first go, so keep that in mind. It will take a good maybe 10 to 15 minutes, I'd like to say, on par for the normal course. But once it's done doing that, every other time you open up this project, you should not have to wait nearly as long again. So I'm just going to sit back, get a snack, and I'll meet up with you guys when this thing is fully initiated. Alright, I'm back. That took maybe a good 20 or so minutes, but when it pops up, be sure to uncheck the check for updates button and hit skip new version. After that's all said and done, we can make the program full screen, and from here, we can either start by making a scene, but I'd like to at least get the SDK installed first. So how do we go about doing that? Well, if we take a look at the wiki, we got to go to Window, Package Manager, and basically copy and paste each one of these into the Package Manager. So you want to go to Window, Package Manager, you want to click on the plus up here, add package from get URL, and then you can just paste that there, then hit add. Now there is a sort of order to go in, but you don't necessarily have to do it, so it's up to you, but I do recommend downloading them in the specific order that they have them listed on the wiki itself. So start with this one, then the URP, and then the Marrow SDK. So alright, that is it. We got all 3 Marrow SDK files installed and Unity as well, all set up and ready to go. So all we got to do from here is hit the X, go up to stress level 0, hit void tools, then you want to hit validate Marrow project settings. You have to do this just about once every new scene, I'd like to say, and you want to hit fix all. Basically, this will set up everything so that it can then work with the Bonelab pretty much. It doesn't take long at all, and you can just hit X when it's done. From here, I recommend taking away the global volume and the main camera, and I also recommend naming your scene. So I'm just going to do that by simply hitting save as, and we'll just open this up as a new scene. Alright, so that's ready to go. I also recommend making a new folder down here for your various assets. I'm just going to call this the Bone Room after it reloads the script assemblies. I'm going to name that Bonelab or something. Hopefully I didn't just freeze the program up trying to type too quick. But yeah, okay, so there we go. I'm going to call this the Bone Room. And I'm just gonna click into that. I do have some assets I wish to load, but before I do any of that, I want to clarify this. We are now on to the process in the video, or the steps in the video to make our own level. All the hard parts are done. Unity's installed, the SDK. We basically have all the tools and ready to go. So if you understand Unity already, feel free to make whatever you wish. But for those of you that don't, I'm going to make a very simple, very basic level, kind of like the one you saw at the beginning in the video. But yeah, for now, I'm just going to make a new 3D object, and that will be a plane. This is just for temporary sake. I'm going to call this the floor. It's our temporary floor for now. And if I click on this, you can see it already has a mesh collider, meaning our character won't fall through. And speaking of our character, we need to place our character within this scene, or he won't work at all in the game. He'll get stuck on loading most likely. So to do this, all I got to do is go into the Marrow SDK just by right-clicking here in the hierarchy and hitting player marker. Now wherever this blue arrow is facing is where you're looking, so keep that in mind. That way if you happen to be really far zoomed out when you place him, you can still at least tell where you're generally looking at. But yeah, another thing to note, since our player has full body physics and everything, I'd like to make sure they're not interacting with any of the in-game objects, because if you spawn within a wall or something, that's not going to be pretty. But yeah, that's basically it for the character. I can move him around, place him wherever. If I place him on this plane we just made that I called floor, he will stand on it and walk on it just fine. That's cool and all. This is a very simple level. If I put a cube in or something, it would just work like this. If I just put this here, it would just work out. However, it's not very cool, not very fun to look at, and even though you can build a whole level like this, I'm just going to import my Oculus Quest 2 home that I made in a previous video just straight into Unity. So how would I do that? Well, I'm going to grab my files. I've changed the Oculus home that I've 3D scanned and made to a .fbx file. This is because Unity can separate this file out into all its files in one go, but just in case, I do have the textures here in case Unity decides to mess up on us. But before I go off and apply this to the scene, I want to click it in the assets here, so I just dragged and dropped it into my Bone Room Assets folder. I want to go under Model, and I want to be sure to select Generate Colliders. If you don't do that and you don't hit Apply, your character will fall through whatever asset it is you load in. Typically, it's when it comes to larger assets. If you import some smaller things, you can sometimes have Unity generate it on the spot. However, with this particular model, I've noticed I have to do it like this in order for it to work fine. So now that I've done that, we can pretty much just drag and drop this thing and we're good to go. But before I go any further, I do want to change some things on this object. I believe that is the materials. So I'm going to go under to materials, click on extract. Alright, I kind of rushed that. I did click the wrong thing after all. As you can see, just dragging and dropping in an FPX file works. However, there is a problem with doing it like this. Even though the textures are here, we do need to separate this out in a little bit. Just because, by default, Unity likes to shine up everything on your surface because it's using the, I'm trying to think, the UDP render pipeline. It just picks something by default. I believe that is shiny. As you can see as I zoom in on here, everything looks like it's been dipped in oil or something. So I will have to fix that. But before I do so, I'm going to lower this down as close to the floor as we can. I'm going to move it into place. I'm also going to get rid of the old floor from the Oculus home. I don't need that no more. So to do this, if I'm not mistaken, we just got to find the object here by clicking on the FPX, and we should be able to just delete it. I'm gonna just change the opacity down. If I'm not mistaken, I can easily do that too. Whatever, I'm gonna do it. Alright, I changed my mind about deleting this because I kind of want to keep this as close to stock as possible. I'm just gonna move these floors underneath of it for now. I believe I got everything right. The only reason why I'm doing this and keeping the floors in case it doesn't work. At least our character will fall down and we can go back to troubleshooting later. How about we go about fixing this oil problem now on this map, and then we should be good enough to go and import this within our Bonelabs. Alright, that time it worked. You do want to hit extract materials when working with an FPX file, so I did that correctly last time. I don't really know what happened. However, now that I got everything separated, we can go and fix these textures. So to do that, I'm just going to click on, in my hierarchy here, my model for the room. I'm going to go down to material shader. I want to make sure I'm using the universal render pipeline, so click on that. And you want to click on any of the ones in here. I believe I used simple lit specular workflow, and that should fix my lighting on this map. It's looking a lot better. There's still some sheen to it. However, I don't really mind. It wasn't that good of a 3D scan, and I just want to make a simple test map to demonstrate that this works. And to also demonstrate that this is an entirely different map, I'm gonna put a cube in or something. That way I can distinguish it from the map that you saw at the beginning of this video. So like, just like that through the door or something. I also want to fix this floor a little bit because there's a hole in the bottom of it. I forgot why I had that little rectangle in there. That was why. Again, horrible, awful 3D scan I took just by taking pictures. It is what it is. However, it looks pretty good once you're in game, so yeah, but that is pretty much it for my map. I kind of like it as is. So what do we do to get this thing ready for, well, Bonelab? Well, all you gotta do is go up to stress level 0, hit void tools, import palette. Oop, my bad. Stress level 0, void tools. Always read the wiki because it's very easy to make mistakes like that. Then you want to click on asset warehouse. This will allow you to create a palette. The other option allows you to import a palette if you have one, but since I don't have one, I'm going to create one. So in here, I'm just going to click on create palette. This will be the name of our map and who made it, so I'm just going to call this the Bone Room, and the author will be me. I'm going to hit create. Now from here, it gets a little bit less intuitive, but trust me, as we go on, it should make a little bit more sense. So you want to click on the palettes, click on the Bone Room, and in here, you want to give it a version number. You also want to give it a description. I'm just going to call it the Bone Room. If I can type the Bone Room. And there are several options such as unlockable, redacted. We're not going to mess with any of that. That's if you have like a teleport, I believe, so you can teleport to another room. It's locked till you teleport. Other than that, the only other thing we should mess with in here is the crate option. So you want to hit add crate. Just think of crates like this. We're packaging all our files here in the hierarchy into one usable thing that we can then export for either PC or Quest. So from in this menu that now just popped up here on screen, we want to go back into our assets folder and we want to select our scene. It should be called whatever it is called up here in the hierarchy. So as you can see, mine is called Bonelab Test. But before I go and select that, I'm going to save because it seems like I have changes that Unity decided not to save. Now that we got a purely up-to-date scene here, I'm just going to click this and drag it here into the asset reference. Then I want to change crate type to level crate because we're working on a level, not an avatar, not an effect, nor a spawnable. If you wanted to make spawnables, it's as simple as this too. However, for the sake of this video, since I said we would be making a level, I'm going to make a level crate. We shouldn't have any errors now. And from here, we can just hit create. Now you want to then go into your palettes, click on your level, click on Bonelab Test, and you do want to copy and paste your description from before into here. So I'm just going to call this the Bone Room. And that is pretty much it. So I'm going to click back up here into our palettes, and you can either click pack for both. However, I'm just going to be packing it for the quest. So I'm going to click on pack for quest. And this should take literally no time at all. The last I checked, the map that we just made here, besides the new addition of a cube, was about like 3 megabytes. However, if I wanted to add more detail, I could just do another new rendition or a new 3D scan and just do a higher quality one. This wasn't even of the point cloud if I remember correctly, because I didn't want to break the limitations of the Quest 2 homemaking system. So I kept everything very low quality. However, if I wanted a true to life version, I could up the quality, and I believe Bonelab can handle that just fine. Alright, when this is done, it should open up and our folder should be there. It's as simple as putting that folder on our quest as if it was any other, well, Bonelab mod. Alright, it looks like the thing is done compiling. I do want to say this level was very simple, very bare bones, so keep in mind with a map like this, if you follow my guide as it is right now, won't have baked in nav mesh, meaning if you spawn in a avatar or something, their NPC I should say, that would chase you, it most likely will just stand there and do nothing. So if you want a further refined video on how to make a level, perhaps we can go more in depth later on. But as you can see here, when it finishes, it opens up a folder. Just navigate into the Android folder, and I believe this folder here is what goes on the quest. Let me just double check by opening it, and indeed that is. So we can now copy this to our Quest headset and fire it up. Alright, so I got my Quest now connected up to my computer. It's been a while since I logged onto Windows and well had my Quest hooked up to here because I have basically all my Quest 2 apps on Linux now. So this might take a second, but I've copied the map. And now I'm going to go into this computer. My Quest 2 should show up here. Just double click it. And I'm going to go into internal, Android, and this is going to look a little different to me because I don't quite remember the name of the folder and I just have it bookmarked on my Linux build anyway. I believe it is stress level 0, yep, Bonelabs, files, mods, and now we could just paste that folder in here. Basically, that is it, and for anyone curious about how big my map actually is that we just made, it's only 5 megabytes. I wasn't making that up. It's seriously super small, considering this is a very detailed, even though rough, 3D scan of my living room in like 2 years ago, I'd like to say. Anyway, I'm just going to close out of this, and I'll meet you guys on the Quest side of things. Alright, now that we're in Bonelabs, to find our newly created and modded map, you just gotta go and head over here to the mod section, same as you would in the other modded map. Go into mod levels, and it should show up in here. As you can see, I called this one Bonelab Test, so I'm just gonna click on that and enter our room. If you've done anything wrong, the room most likely will get stuck on a forever loading screen, but as you can see here, everything is indeed right. I can actually go into the dev tools. Oops, hit my desk again. You should be able to spawn things in, just place them anywhere, and they shouldn't fall through your map. So I could put something there on the chair, it works just fine. And just to prove that this was, just to prove that this was the map that we indeed, made in the tutorial, there's that cube I said about. That's not in the original map on the starting video. Yeah, that was at the start of at the intro, I should say. Oh my god, this video's gone on so long, I'm starting to ramble. Anyway, yeah, that is indeed it. Let me just spawn in an NPC just to prove to you that this doesn't really work all too great with NPCs because there's no nav mesh. Let's click at early exit zombie, sure. Don't really have a weapon, do I? Okay. Alright, there you go. As you can see, I slapped him. He doesn't move. He'll stay right there because we didn't put a nav mesh in. However, perhaps in the future we can go about doing that. But if you're wondering how the physics and everything, if they work, well, yes, you can indeed climb in your level if you wish. That should work by default. However, certain geometry does work better, and if you look around in the SDK a bit more, you'll figure out quickly how to build a climbing level. However, for the time being, that is it for this tutorial. Let me just turn my Quest 2 headset off so we can finish this up proper. Yeah, that is indeed it for the level and, well, setting up Unity and the Marrow SDK. So yeah guys, for now I'm going to leave today's video off here. Perhaps if I ever cover this again in the future, it will be for setting it up on Linux, or perhaps even just demonstrating more advanced level techniques and stuff when it comes to building your own custom levels. But yeah, for now I'm going to leave this off here. DTPK signing off. Peace. Avatar is facing is where you're going to be facing within the VR headset. But yeah, pretty beat up and damaged, but the printer itself was just fine. Now the little touch display on the front was